Gia Jiv, and welcome to day one, part one of my GP's, Graham de Penrose's series on cognitive warfare, dominating the brain as the battlescape of the 21st century. During this series, I'll be covering a introductory or beginner's awareness of the various elements of this particular field, including the evolution of warfare, traditional to cognitive techniques, the significance of the human brain in modern warfare, understanding the cognitive battlescape in terms of the human brain project and its relevance, that is run out of Lausanne, Switzerland on behalf of the European Union. Insights from neuroscientist Dr. James Giordano, who is a 30-year vet of the 40-year-old domain of neuroscience in terms of its military applications. The role of the intelligence agencies in the United States of America, in particular the DIA, the NSA, and the CIA, and their hybrid or linear warfare tactics, in cognitive warfare. Also, the three doctrines warfare of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and the role of that in targeting demographics within nations or within regions with regard to opinion, mood, sentiment, and morale manipulation. We're talking about the foundations of cognitive warfare and some of the technologies that are involved in the domain, including hybrid human-computer interfaces. One might consider the Apple Vision Pro as one of them, which contains resident AI on the headset, although only in a dev mode at the moment, and probably just a PR stunt to keep them relevant, because the release of the public version won't be for 12 months, and I'm sure the market will have changed significantly by then. And also brain-computer interfaces. In specific terms, we'll use the example of Neuralink. Neuralink, which has received its first human trials from the FDA, despite the fact that there are 3 investigations ongoing into the company, namely the conflict of interest that exists in the ethics, the financial conflict of interest that exists within the ethics and the oversight committee, the illegal transportation of monkey brain pathogens across state lines by Neuralink, and also the cruel and unusual and resulting in death treatment of the test animals in order to accelerate the research, namely the sheep, pigs, and monkeys under the care of Neuralink. I'll also be discussing harnessing AI as it stands, or big data machine learning more correctly, because there's a lot of AI masquerading as AI, which in fact is really just machine learning, using vast amounts of data in order to gather insights, and how it is being used or harnessed for cognitive domination. This also dovetails neatly with the book I'm writing right now called, 2 books I'm writing right now. One is called AI, Artificial Indoctrination, and the second is called The First Cognitive Devolution, which I believe will be the case if we're not careful about how we introduce these technologies, especially in the formative years of childhood learning, especially 0 to 6 years of age, and when synapses are being connected, and also the role of family and societal structures and role models, and the potential replacement of those with digital guardians. There's a thought experiment around that which I'm going to introduce, which is Alice, the 19th century girl growing up in Dublin City, Ireland, and Alice, the 23rd century girl growing up in a landscape of Mars in the 23rd century in a biosphere, and the effect that both different experiences have on the cognitive development of Alice. We're talking about espionage and intelligence gathering in the cognitive era, and the attack surfaces that exist, or the attack surface that exists, and the attack vectors on that attack surface. We'll move into then cognitive warfare strategies, especially in the use of militarized neuropharmacology in the area of cognitive warfare, neurostimulation techniques for tactical advantage, both in stimulating for advantage and stimulating for devolution in a target audience, whether that be military or civilian, in a hostile or perceived as hostile nation or region. Then also the weaponization of biology, lessons from historical errors and successes. The weaponization of biology against humanity, a school of thought that began formally in Eastern Europe at the turn of the 20th century. We'll move on then to talk about the asymmetrical warfare in the cognitive era, the adaptation of asymmetrical warfare tactics to cognitive battlescapes, AI augmented espionage and covert operations, protecting and countermeasures against all of the above cognitive attacks, and developing what I call cognitive resilience. And finally, the section that we will cover to wrap up after we have the baseline in this introductory context of the brain as battlescape in the 21st century, the ethical considerations and international law, the compliance, governance and oversight that will be present or absent in any of the above domains that I've mentioned, and finally address the moral and legal dilemmas in cognitive warfare and the international agreements and regulations that may or may not be put into place with respect to cognitive warfare and conflict, such as they have been with respect to nuclear proliferation and the use of chemical, biological and other weapons that are considered to be outside of the domain of acceptable use. Having said that, we've seen the devolution of acceptable use recently with the permission, or should I say the the granting of cluster bombing by the Biden administration to the Zelensky government in the Ukraine conflict. So with that, I'd like to wrap up this introduction to the beginners series, an introduction to the baseline foundational element of cognitive warfare, my series, Graham de Penrose, using the title Dominating the Brain as the Battlescape of the 21st Century, a manual for navigating a complex brainscape. Go raibh míle maith agat, slán agus beannacht é.